One of the scariest, creepiest horror series available on PC, the Amnesia series, has never made it over to console. Until now. The Amnesia Collection is out on PlayStation 4, but does this collection do justice to the horror franchise, or is it just a long descent into madness? The Amnesia Collection features the three main titles in the Amnesia series, with The Dark Descent and Justine, its DLC, done by Frictional Games, and the sequel, The Dark Descent, known as A Machine for Pigs, which was developed by the Chinese Room, who went on to make Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. All three games are first-person perspective, creepy, atmospheric horror titles where the focus isn't on the combat. In fact, you can't even fight the enemies that you see throughout the game. You have to either run past them and get away, or hide in a dark corner and try to make sure you're able to stay safe. While the games all play very similar to one another, there are some minor changes and differences between Dark Descent and A Machine for Pigs. All the game's strengths, though, are in its atmosphere and storytelling. These are some really dark horror stories that are told throughout, mostly through the acts of flashbacks and notes that you find scattered throughout, though they all culminate with various events throughout the course of the main story. Being a fragile character, not being able to combat against the monsters that are chasing you throughout, you have to be stealthy and crafty when it comes to actually maneuvering around each area, and you're never sure what's going to be around that next corner. You may go around into a corner and have to solve a puzzle, go around the next corner and there's a monster getting ready to chase you, and you'll have to quickly run down previous hallways, opening doors, just barely escaping before finally being able to make it to safety. There is a heavy amount of puzzle solving in the game, a lot of which you'll have to travel through the rooms, find objects, and then bring them back to another room in order to initiate things such as gear-based puzzles, lever-based puzzles, and of course your inventory-style puzzles where you have to gather a bunch of items, combine them together in order to place them into one object in order to open up the next place for you to go. One of the best parts of the series for me was in Amnesia The Dark Descent, which was the whole sanity mechanic. It was something removed in A Machine for Pigs, but that game is still great in its own right, don't get me wrong. But I love the whole idea of being afraid of the dark along with the events that are going on. So not only are you vulnerable, you have to run away from the enemies and have to manage your sanity. Basically, if you stay in the dark for too long without having the lantern with you or lighting a candle or torch nearby, you will slowly start to go insane and hallucinate and have the whole screen kind of screw up and mess up and slow your character up while you're trying to progress. It was just another great part of what made Amnesia stand out to me as a horror title. A Machine for Pigs changed and freshened up things. While it removed the sanity meter, it also changed up the way you deal with health. No longer did you have to find health items scattered around the areas, instead you auto-regen your health. There was also no longer inventory to worry about. Puzzles and the way they were solved were also changed, as well as the AI, that made it a little bit harder to predict exactly how the monsters were going to react. There was also much larger areas to explore, including outside areas that weren't seen in Dark Descent. It can be argued which of the two games you end up liking better after you complete them, but I end up liking both for different reasons. Then there's Justine, and while it is a much smaller experience as it was done as a DLC originally only with the Steam version of Dark Descent, though has since been released with all versions and now part of this collection, has trials where you have to deal with solving puzzles but also deciding kind of who lives and who dies, and you're listening to the stories of these people that are being held captive beyond their will. The game is much shorter, and because of this there's actually no saving when you're going through it, though that really isn't too much of a hindrance because of how short it ends up being. But the story is well worth playing through, and it fits perfectly with every one of the other elements of Amnesia. While I don't want to spoil too much about the story or anything, I do want to emphasize that I do find the story plots of each of the games to be the highlight overall. I enjoy the gameplay and puzzle solving and some of the stealth elements that are involved, even though I'm not a big stealth fan, but it's the stories that kept me going and kept me driving through. I want to see where things end up. There's a lot of crazy stuff that happens in each of the games with some twists and turns along the way to keep you interested and to want to see what's going on. Even if you're a little bit scared of seeing what's around that next corner, you want to because of the way the story is drawing you in. I think all three of the games excel in that regard. From the technical side, I think the game never crashed on me. I didn't run into any slowdown through any of the games. I did run into a couple little minor glitches here and there. I fell through the ground on one occasion, and also pushed an enemy through a wall at one point where they were trying to get to me. I opened up a door, and they went through the wall and were trying to get me and trying to claw me, but they were unable to do so, which was pretty funny, though it didn't really take away too much from my experience, and it only happened the one time throughout my playthroughs of each game. The Amnesia Collection is available for $29.99. It does feature a full trophy list, including a platinum, though it's only one trophy list. Some collections end up having a separate one for every game in the collection, but in this case, there's only one trophy list for the entire set. It may be a bit pricey, and I truly get that, but the games were never released on console prior to this release, so I feel like if you're a horror fan and for some reason you've never checked out this series, you really need to do yourself a favor and give these games a shot. With all said, I'm going to be giving this collection an 8 out of 10. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.